This is a Central Machinery drill press. It's a platform drill press. Currently at Harbor Freight, this is the least expensive of the stand drill presses. I mean, not the benchtop ones, but the ones with the built-in stand. This one clocked in at about $285 for the press. I think it's fairly substantial. Everything's cast metal. Everything's metal pretty much, except for handles and obvious things. One thing that did strike me about the drill press, and I don't have any experiences with drill presses. This is the first one I've ever purchased. This one was advertised as having 16 speeds. And it does have 16 speeds, but you'll notice the only controls you have up top are the on-off switch and of course the plunge, or the dial for plunging the bit down into your material. You actually change the speeds on this drill by changing the belts up top. So if you open the top of the machine unit here, you have 3 spindles and are 2 belts. And you adjust different speeds on the drill based on this chart up here. So for instance, if I was cutting a soft wood or drilling a soft wood with it, I'd probably run in about the 1430 range, which is currently set for. If you look at the diagram and you see where I have the pulleys, that's for soft wood. If I was cutting something, well, I'm sorry, let me go back. Hardwood, I would go at a lower speed. The softwood, I'd be going a little bit faster. So currently we have it for cutting or drilling hardwood, which we're drilling some oak and some poplar and some other stuff in here for a project the ladies in the family were doing. Again, in order to change speeds, what you do is you look at your chart, or you look up online or in a book or wherever you get your reference for what speed you want. Then you come down here and there's actually a tension or a tightening knob. You unscrew this and then the lever actually pulls the motor loose, pulls it in so that you can actually slide the belts on and off the spindles. And that's really how you adjust it. When you've got it in the position you want, you tighten it back, turn the thumb screw. Thumb screw is a plastic handle on a metal shaft, and I've had some problems with those before. Not with just Central Machinery equipment, but any kind of equipment, saws, drills, anything that's got one of the little thumb screws like that, I've had issues with. The motor seems pretty powerful in this thing, and I can go through the specs on it later. But I just wanted to show you the drill. Again, pretty substantial. Nice drill. Look forward to using it a lot. I need to get some metal bits because I predominantly wanted it to drill metal. And the family was working on projects with wood, and it was a good excuse for me to go out and buy this thing, so that's what I did. So let's back up a little bit, and I want to go back and take a look at how this thing went together, how it is assembled. Well, here's the box. The 16-speed heavy-duty floor drill press from Central Machinery came in. Typical big tool shipping box. Made out of some of the flimsiest pasteboard known to man. It's probably completely water soluble, so it's a good thing I didn't get it wet. It was hefty. 2 guys brought it out at Harbor Freight. We couldn't get it in the showroom. We had to drive around to the back dock, and they loaded it up, and it'll fit in any car with a hatchback or truck or whatnot. So what's in the box? Let's take a look. First of all, we have the base. Now the base is actually fairly substantial. It's made out of cast iron. It's got some good weight to it. There are several places with openings where you can bolt it down to a floor for extra stability, but it feels pretty substantial. Let's see how it goes together with everything else. Next we have the column support, the column, the table support assembly, the table, which is also substantial cast iron, a ring, which I believe is to hold the top of the rack, and the head. Now, in addition to all the head assembly, which has the mechanism, the drill, the motor, all that stuff, some bolts for the base, a couple of small Allen wrenches, and finally the spindle and the chuck. Yeah, it doesn't have chuckless function. You actually have a chuck, just like in the good old days. Let's put it together. The first stage in assembly is putting on the column support onto the base, which is pretty simple. It's 4 bolts. They're actually 18mm bolts. You need a wrench or a socket, which of course is not included. Next we install a column. Again, pretty simple. Insert it in there, there's a stop in the shaft, and you use the provided Allen wrench for tightening it down. The drill press uses a rack and pinion mechanism to go up and down. And here's the rack. Now on my first attempt to install the table support assembly, I put the rack on first and tried to insert it over it, but I found pretty soon that the only way to do this successfully was to actually install them both together, which means I'll insert the rack inside of the pinion unit inside the table support, and I'll insert them together. I'll set up the camera so you can see what I mean. Now here's what I mean. You have to make sure you've got your smooth side on the top, because that's the top side, and this is the portion that holds the table. This is the portion that rides up and down the rack. So I'm going to install the rack. There's a little wedged top on the cylinder down here, the portion, or actually the column support. And pardon the perspiration, it is very hot out here. So I'm going to insert that. Then I'm going to slide it over the shaft. I'm going to make sure that the bottom seats in there. Now we've got a functioning rack and pinion system going up and down. But again, the trick is to install them together, not separately. Separately, it's a battle. Here's a close-up of the mechanism. The table will go here, the round table, and this is the crank, and it goes up and down. Now see, without everything tightened down, it can wobble around. Now there's actually another part actually is cut with a wedge as well, so it actually goes over the shaft and it holds in place the rack once it's tightened down. And this is tightened down as well with an Allen wrench that was provided, the smaller one. And that should keep the rack from moving around because it's underneath this end at the top, this wedged piece, and at the bottom again, it's in a little wedged area here where it sticks down into. I'm willing to bet that you didn't need a video to see how this goes on, but we've done the rest. So there's your table assembly, and there are adjustments we'll talk about later for, you know, tightening things down and that sort of thing. But let's move on. And let's put the head assembly on. Now once it's in position, again, we have Allen screws that fit right here. Tighten it down. Maybe in machine shops and things like that, where professionals work, unlike myself, they still use chucks like this, but this was like a relic from a bygone age when I opened this up, because I'm used to like a chuckless or keyless drill chuck, whatever the terminology is, but you know what I'm saying. But we put this on next. I found this interesting as well. The process for putting this on, the mandrel, what I call the mandrel on, is you put it on there as tight as you can by hand, and you turn it until the bottom prongs here are completely receded so they can't be damaged. At that point, you place a scrap of wood onto the table and you just squeeze down and just use solid pressure, and that installs it. Hope you can see that well. So the only thing left to do at this point is to put a bit in it and do some test drilling. And I guess I'll do that next. Okay, well, I guess we'll get a bit in here. And this is one of the bits the ladies in the family have been using for their project. and that's what's laying around, so that's what I'm going to use. I don't have any metal bits yet. I'll try drilling metal later because that's really what I got the drill for anyway. Again, look at this. You've got to actually crank it down with the key. And that seems pretty tight. Now, I have the speed currently set at 1430. Now let's fire it up. It does have a safety switch up top, which you pull up to turn it on and slap it down to turn it off in an emergency. So, that's how it sounds right now. So good clean hole. Again, this is not much of a challenge. This is just cutting some wood, but I wanted to hear what the saw sounded like. And because, again, you're changing the speeds with the belt, swapping the belts out, like I said at the beginning of the video, the motor always pretty much runs the same speed. So there's that to think about. That should be good for the life. Now my final thoughts or first impressions. Everything on this saw or drill, I keep wanting to call it a saw, sorry. Everything on this drill press feels pretty substantial. I don't like the chuck mechanism, the keyed chuck mechanism. I really wish this rack would have been mounted a little better. I find that when I loosen to go up and down with the crank, when I want to go up and down this rack, it can twist a little bit. You see it going back and forth? And, you know, I just don't like that. It could have been a little more substantial, but it's workable. And, you know, I doubt I'm going to be changing the platform height very often. Who knows? The platform does tilt back and forth at different angles. There's a little gauge underneath here for that. And up top here, you can set the depth. The crank goes down with this loosening knob. You can set how far you want it to go down. And I guess that's pretty much it. If I had my rathers as well, I would have had a better cranking mechanism for these locks. I find them a little awkward. You can lock down the table, but I just don't like this mechanism very much. When you turn it, you know what I mean. I would have preferred something else, but it's functional, so it'll get good use out here in the shop. It seems like it's substantial. It seems like it's built to last. A good sized electric motor on the back. We'll find out. One final note, these are the specifications. Of course, it runs on 120 volts AC. You see a list of the spindle speeds at the top. Capacities, the height. Hopefully that's helpful. Again, this was the least expensive table drill press on a stand at Harbor Freight. See you next time.